Hi everyone, this is my Education 150 screencast. My name is Raegan Stambaugh, and I'm a freshman at Alma College. I'm double majoring in special education and elementary education. Some other fun facts about me are that I'm on the swim and dive team at Alma College. I also have one younger brother named Mason and a dog named Snowflake, as seen in the bottom left-hand corner. I also included a picture of my parents in the bottom right-hand corner. I put the picture of people in here because I love meeting new people. At Alma College, there's so many ways to get involved on campus and to meet all kinds of people. So to start off, I'm going to talk about criterion reference tests. A criterion reference test is designed to measure a student's academic performance against some standard or criteria. This material will be predetermined and basically shows where a student is sitting and where they may need extra help. These tests are also used to learn a student's proficiency and learn where they need more help. This is just about any test that is given in an academic setting, such as pre-testing or standardized testing. It is all criterion referenced. A formative assessment is to see where your students fall. It is really low stakes and is over a small amount of material, which is a lesson or a unit, and helps teachers see where their students are and where they still need help. A summative assessment is also an assessment that evaluates student learning, but basically it is comparing it to some benchmark like the criterion reference test that we talked about earlier. It is usually a lot more high stakes. It can be used for things such as if a student can get into a certain college or move on to the next grade level. And basically, it's one and done. You don't get a second chance with summative assessments. An easy way to remember this is summative assessment is the sum of everything learned. Next, we're going to talk about triangulation. Triangulation is when a teacher uses 3 different sources to measure student learning. The point of this is to get a more accurate measure of student performance. So if you test them only using one method, and if they're bad in that one particular method, it's not going to be an accurate representation of how they're actually doing in that content area. So I pulled up a graph of triangulation to help further illustrate this point. So for example, say a student fails to be able to have a conversation about something they learned, but they can produce product through what they learned, whether that be an essay or anything else. It shows you that perhaps they struggle with communication skills or understanding on a deeper level. You would not be able to make these assertions without triangulation. So, a way to test where students are at is using the Brigance math grade placement or oral reading comprehension. The Brigance tests are really easy to administrate, and they place students at a certain grade level. So you can plan individualized instruction, knowing the areas of struggle and the grade level they are at. This is an example of a Brigance reading test at the primer level. You would start students at this level and gradually move on until they're no longer passing with 80% accuracy. The directions say this assessment is made by asking the students to read silently one of the 2 stories, Form A or Form B, on S141 for the primer level. Then the student will listen to 5 questions and answer the questions orally with at least 80% comprehension accuracy. So basically you point to the story that you want the student to read and you tell them, I want you to read this story silently. After you have read the story, I will ask you some questions. Tell me the best answers to each question. Then basically you ask them the questions, they give you their answers, and you record how many they got right for that specific section. Some example questions from Form A that I pulled are, what does Gus like to do? Who will play ball? And what will Gus do to be happy? As the test goes on, the questions become more difficult and complicated. There becomes harder questions and passages become longer with more complex vocabulary. This is an example of the math Brigance at the primer level. which this one specifically starts at first grade level. The directions on this one say, give the student a copy of page S383, an inch ruler, and a pencil. Point to section 1 and say, find each sum or difference. Point to section 2 and say, write the tens and ones in each number, and so on and so forth. It's really self-explanatory. Same deal. If they aren't passing with 80%, they shouldn't move on to the next grade level assessment. So after doing a Brigance reading assessment on one of my placement students, I found that he was reading at a second grade level, which is 2 grades below where he's at. This highlights the results that I got from my placement student's Brigance reading assessment. So this first column right here, he got 100%, and that was at the first primer level. Then we have the lower first grade level, where he also got 100%. Now right here is the upper first grade level, and he got a 60%. But I knew he could perform at a higher level than this. I think he just had a minor error, so I moved on to the the lower second grade level, and he was able to score an 80% there. And then we got to the upper second grade level, and I could tell that he was starting to struggle, and he got a 60%, so that's where we stopped at, which proves that he falls at a second grade reading level. So how to apply the results for learning instruction. So basically I could see that he had really low comprehension skills and a low level of vocabulary. He was able to get through passages and finish them, but he had a lot of trouble retaining information he had just read. He would read it and instantly forget, and wouldn't be able to apply it to any actual questions. So something you can do with these results is make individualized instruction. This particular student, I knew he loved farm animals, and so a challenge for me was finding a book that would fit a 4th grader to read. So I looked on A to Z Books, and this website provides many resources, and I typed in his topic of interest, which was farm animals, and I found a book called Chickens in My Backyard. He loves reading informational books about farm animals, so I felt that this would be a perfect fit for him, and it was at the appropriate reading level. I was able to find his topic of interest, which was something he loved, farm animals, and it was going to be able to be applied where he needs more help with his comprehension. I found this worksheet on reading A to Z. This is a worksheet that helps work on reading comprehension. It has the student identify the main idea of the book. It also has a section for the student to write details from specific page numbers. Lastly, the worksheet asks for the reader to write a brief, maybe a sentence or two, summary. I would do this worksheet with the student and assist him to help improve comprehension skills, using the worksheet more as a guide to help improve his comprehension. The website also provides tons of other resources and worksheets and that kind of stuff. So it's a very good tool for teachers to use. In conclusion, I talked about the different types of assessment and triangulation. I discussed how to use the Brigance assessment, which was something that was new for me to learn about, and learning how to administrate and give the Brigance, and learning how to use the results. I also talked about individualized instruction and how to understand what a student might need help with. So lastly, we're going to talk about teaching reading to students with learning disabilities. After reading the article, what caught my attention the most was that it is really important to know the signs of a reading disability, because it's very easy to mix up someone who is low achieving with someone who actually has a reading disability. Something from this lesson that can be applied is triangulation. To know the difference between low achieving and disabled, because using one kind of test will never give you enough information. It's really important to use other methods of understanding, because maybe a student has a vision problem, or maybe a student's just being lazy, or it could really be anything. It's important to understand and have early intervention, because once a student gets to a certain point, it's really hard to catch them back up to grade level. There's a lot of strategies that can be used, but overall, it is mostly important to spend time implementing strategies to these students who are falling behind using response to intervention. This is obviously really close to learning disability because students need that extra attention and that individualized instruction, and it's important for them to be able to read in order to do anything for any other subject. For example, word problems in math. It's just an example to prove that it all comes back to reading. It's a fundamental skill. This is why teaching reading to students with learning disabilities is so important. Thank you for listening into my screencast.